Hello and welcome again to my channel. My name is Heather and today I'm going to talk you through another Shakespeare play that I have recently read.
Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno girano, delle belle turbando il riposo, Narcisetto a dolcino d'amor. Delle belle turbando il riposo, Narcisetto a dolcino d'amor.
If you're new here, my goal for this year was to read the 8 remaining plays that I had not yet read of Shakespeare's works. Today, I'm going to talk about the second of those 8 remaining plays that I have now read, which was Henry VIII. This is one of Shakespeare's histories. It was co-authored with John Fletcher, and it is of course about the life of King Henry VIII. Now, being a big Tudor fan, I was intrigued to see how Shakespeare would treat the life of Henry VIII, given that these were fairly recent events when Shakespeare was writing about them, certainly more recent than any of his other history plays. It focuses on earlier parts of Henry VIII's reign, namely that of his divorce from Catherine of Aragon, his marriage to Anne Boleyn, the birth of their daughter Elizabeth, and the rise and fall of Cardinal Wolsey during that time. I was especially curious to see when this was written, as Queen Elizabeth was alive for much of Shakespeare's writing career. And of course, she would have had some very decided opinions on his treatment of this history. However, in my reading, I discovered that this play was first performed in 1613. So well after the reign of Elizabeth, any parties who might have vested interests in how this play was handled were no longer living. What I was particularly pleased to see was how it treated both Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn. Usually, even in modern novels, the author tends to be biased towards one or other of these women. What I found intriguing was that Shakespeare treats them both with an equal hand. He gives Catherine of Aragon very fair judgment, beautiful, impassioned speeches, but never too emotional. She is always rational, even when she is experiencing very strong emotions, and treats her downfall with the utmost sympathy, as he should. She went through a terrible time. But on the other hand, he then does not treat Anne Boleyn as the seductive temptress who lured Henry away from all that was right. In fact, Anne is given very little to say at all. She's given a few polite interactions with Henry at a banquet, and an entire scene with, presumably, one of her maids. The character is only given the title Old Woman. But Anne talks with her about the fact that she does not aspire to riches or social status in life. However, at the end of that scene, when Henry makes her Marchioness of Pembrokeshire, it's quite clear exactly what his intentions are, and that Anne has no hope of successfully turning him down. And she is on the road to greatness, whether she likes it or not. Now, are these portrayals completely true? Probably not. Shakespeare never knew these women, and of course, no person is ever perfect. But I'd like to think that there is some truth in each of Shakespeare's portrayals, even though there may have been many other factors also playing into their characters, which he did not get to address within the scope of the play. After reading it, I also watched the BBC adaptation from the 1970s, which stars Sir Timothy West as Cardinal Wolsey, among many others. I am glad that I watched a production in addition to reading it, because of course these plays were meant to be seen. I actually got more out of the reading experience than I did out of watching it. I found that certain scenes tended to drag or were made a bit unnecessary on film, whereas in reading them, your imagination was able to fill in the gaps much better and much more vividly than the film was. Another reason why I much preferred reading it to watching it is its subtitle. Apparently, it was originally performed under the title All Is True, which I find particularly fascinating. And I find it fascinating because each of these characters is going through all kinds of machinations to try and get their way at court. And with the divorce and the split from the church and watching all of these noblemen be incredibly jealous of Cardinal Wolsey's rise from seeming obscurity, it's fascinating to look at the fact that every single one of those characters thinks that they are telling the truth. In fact, they are convinced of it, when in fact we as the audience can never be sure what exactly is true, as we did not experience these events ourselves. So everything that is being delivered to us is being delivered with a tinge of the personal. There are personal feelings, personal jealousies that are clouding the facts that they are giving us. And it just goes to prove how little has changed throughout the course of history. That we are still, when reading the news, trying to figure out where the author's bias lies to find where the truth lies. And that even 400 or 500 years ago, we were doing the same thing. And yet all of it is true because each person's lived experience is true, whether or not we share it or not. Anyway, those are my thoughts, if a bit philosophical, on the play King Henry VIII. Overall, I enjoyed it. It's not one of my favorites, but I am very glad that I read it because it's given me a lot to think about. Let me know down below what your thoughts are if you have read it, or if you are intrigued to read it now, or indeed watch it. Or if you go off and read it or watch it, let me know what you think. As always, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.